Hey dancers, welcome back to Broche Banter. I'm Julie, your host. Today we have such a fun episode from Black Swan to Motherhood, a journey of rediscovery. In this inspiring episode, I was so lucky to sit down with Alexandra, who began her ballet journey at a young age, fueled by exceptional teachers and unwavering support. At just 14, she joined the School of American Ballet in New York, but her path was not without challenges as she faced various injuries. Undeterred, Alexandra went on to dance with the Los Angeles Ballet. There, she trained Mila Kunis for her iconic role in Black Swan, an experience that transformed Alexandra's life forever. For the first time in her career, she found her voice and confidence to stand up for herself, eventually leading her to leave Los Angeles and join the new Chamber Ballet in New York. After stepping away from performing to embrace life as a full-time mother, she took time to heal from the wounds of her ballet career. When her daughter began dancing, she rediscovered her passion for ballet and returned to teaching, reminding us all to dance for ourselves, embrace freedom and movement, and find joy in the art form. Join us for this heartfelt conversation about resilience, reinvention, and the power of dancing freely. And with that, I hope you enjoy. Welcome to Broche Banter, Alexandra. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to get to know you.
We have so much to dive into, so let's get right into it. Tell me a little bit about the very beginning of ballet. Let's hear about how did you start? You started as a young child. What was life like as a young ballet dancer for you?
Yeah, so I grew up, dancing in little studios when I was younger. But the joke in our family was that I never went into the studio. I never wanted to take class. My parents have this very sweet first pair of ballet shoes that hang over a picture in my room, and they are completely trashed. They look like I was a very serious dancer from a young age, and it turns out I wore them to the grocery store. And that was it. And I never enjoyed going into class. I was really shy. I didn't particularly like being in there. I didn't like moving my body in that space with everybody watching me. And yet I kind of kept going little bit by little bit. And then around the age of 9, 10, I had a teacher who just changed everything for me. And it was more like, here's ballet in a way that is not just movement and free spirit, but let's show you the technical stuff. And that ended up igniting something in me that lasted forever.
Wow, that's such a funny, an unexpected intro into how
Yeah.
your childhood ballet went.
Yeah.
So really around 9 or 10, you kind of found your love for it. Now, did you take it all the way from there, all the way until your professional career, pretty much nonstop through all of that?
I did. I did. I immediately was at a small studio where I'm from in Florida, and we had an incredible connection to Sarasota Ballet and the amazing faculty members there who are all Vaganova Russian trained. And so we were a small studio, but we got incredible, very technical Russian Vaganova training from a very young age. And so I was lucky enough to train under Svetlana Osieva, who's now at Herod Conservatory, for all of my younger years. And that was an enormous blessing because I was getting that really technical foundation, but in an environment that allowed me to learn to dance in other genres. I still took jazz and still took hip hop. And there's video out there somewhere of me being a Chiquita Banana on stage in recital. So, like, I did all of the other things as well. And it was pretty clear that that was not going to work for me and that ballet was definitely my path. And then as the years went on, I just got more and more serious about it. And again, I was really lucky to have a studio owner and teachers who said, we are giving you everything we can here. And eventually it's going to be time to spread your wings and fly in other places. And I say this to parents now a lot, but my mom and my dad, who I'm very close with and incredibly supportive, they had that conversation one time with our director who sat them down and said, I need you to know she's not going to go to high school here. She's going to have to go to boarding school. She's going to have to spread her wings. We cannot take her training all the way up. And I have since had children and stuff and had this conversation with my mom, like, how is that possible? How did you say, like, okay, you can do that? And her one answer always has been, I just prayed that I had given you enough support that you were going to go on and make good decisions without me over your head all the time. So again, I was surrounded by amazing teachers. I had incredible support. I had directors of programs who also fought for me. and said, this is where you need to go. This is the path you need to go down. Here's where you need to audition. This is how summer programs break down. And that is something that I couldn't have done on my own. My parents couldn't have done. That was not a background that they came from. And so they immediately said, you need to start going to Herod. You need to start going to take classes other places, summer program auditions. And so I just slowly started doing all of those. And then that led to the bigger world of ballet opening up in front of me. And I was like, oh, I know what I want to do. I'm doing this. And then as I went to lots of summer programs and stuff, I eventually found my way to SAB. And I went to a couple years of summer program there and then was invited to stay for the year-round program. And that was, I did 1 year at Miami City Ballet before that. And then when I got invited at SAB, that was a big moment for my parents to be like, okay, it's come. They at SAB used to do the 5-week program. And around the 4th week, you start seeing girls get called into the office. And you're like, oh my gosh, please call my name into the office. Like the only time in your life you want to be called into the office. And they call you in there and they have this like very proper moment. And they say, we'd like to extend an invitation for you to train here in the fall. And you're like, either my life has ended or it's about to begin. Like it's so overwhelming after all the years you put in. And I remember walking into the hallway afterwards and just bawling on the phone to my parents and being like, it's happened. It happened. We did it. I'm doing this thing. And so, luckily I have just been graced with presence of incredible teachers, wonderful directors, and parents who fought for me and allowed me to do this crazy thing.
You're like 14 being told you can train in New York City. Like that's just wild. That's so young. And then of all the places your parents had to let you go was New York City. Like of all the cities where they could have sent you
Correct.
like to somewhere in Kansas, something a little bit smaller and a little less
Oh
overwhelming.
yeah. Oh yeah. They had thought this through too. They were like, maybe we could do one of these other ones. I mean, at one point we even looked at like Canada as some options because I had gotten a handful of opportunities. And of course, I was like sparkly eyed for the big name and the big school. And that's what I wanted to do. And as soon as that came down the pipe, I was like, this is where I'm going. I'm doing it.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny. I moved to New York City when I was 18, not knowing anybody there to go to school. And even having moved there at 18, I've asked my parents before, like, how did you send me there at 18? Like that must have been
Yeah.
horrifying for you to just put me on that plane and like leave me there. Like I can't even imagine what that was like. And then now it's like 14 or 15 years old when you went there. Like you're just
Yes.
so young in such a big city and so naive and like you're going to this whole place and oh my
All the things were overwhelming. There was so much that they had to just trust in me. And the summer that I went, it happened to be a very, very small acceptance summer. Some years they have a big graduating class and they have more to backfill. It just depends. My summer, I think there was 3 of us that ended up staying. And so I was like, gung ho about doing it. And then it became like, how do we do this? I have a younger brother. There's other family members to think about. There's all kinds of things. And it's not, an inexpensive opportunity to go do. But yeah, I have so much respect and gratitude to my parents for letting me do that.
yeah, incredible. And so you trained there for a few years and did you launch your professional career out of SAB?
I did. So I was at SAB for a couple of years and I had a couple of injuries there. I fractured my back. I fractured my foot. I had a variety of different issues and injuries that came up due to just, I was a young child and growing up in ballet is not easy. I don't have the body. I have a very much a ballet body, but it was not wildly limber. And I was forcing myself to do things that I had no business doing and did not have the knowledge on how to keep myself safe. There's so much more now, and I'm so grateful for that. But I did have a few injuries, and actually, my senior year, I was out again with a back injury, and they granted me a 5th year, which was incredible. And I was like, okay, that's great. I'll stay one more year past graduation, and then I'll do all the auditions because essentially, audition circuit had come, and I was rehabbing. So that summer, I stayed after my senior year and I just stayed and did the summer program. And while I was doing the summer program, like rehabbing, getting back in shape and everything, Kay Mazzo called me into her office and she said, I just got a call. Los Angeles Ballet has one more spot to fill. This has been a theme of my life. There's one more spot. And for some reason, I've planted these. And so she said, if you can get on a plane tomorrow, they'll see you in an audition. And I was like, well, yep, I will. Went home, booked a flight, flew to Los Angeles, got in a car with somebody who was like, I work for Los Angeles Ballet. I was like, sure you do. And so the next day auditioned, and within 48 hours, I was flying back to New York with my first contract and moving to Los Angeles. So now my parents, who thought that I was going to be settled in New York another year, get another crying phone call from their daughter. And this time it was, I really, really did it. I got a contract. They're going to pay me to do this thing that I love so much. And I think by the end of that week, I had flown and was now living in Los Angeles doing this thing.
Wow. So you got the contract even though you were still like getting back in shape and kind of getting your body back. They could kind of see, see that you were, your training and your way about you.
Exactly. And I had wonderful recommendations from SAB. So I think that, went a long ways. And I was fully rehabbed. I just had not been back in rehearsals and everything. And so they kind of knew coming into it that I needed to take it a little bit easier as we led into the first season of Nutcracker and everything. And then it turns out, of course, I just went like full speed ahead and rehabbed on this side on my own, less full on than I probably should have.
So tell me about what happened once you got to LA. Was that what kind of roles were you getting in the beginning? How was that first year experience? I mean, that's already a big adjustment from New York, but maybe at this point you're used to big adjustments, but that's a big adjustment right there.
Yeah, it definitely was. I joined the company on their inaugural year. So it was the first year for all of Los Angeles Ballet. We all got together. Originally, the company kind of was located in Malibu in temporary studios. And so we had all gotten there, and a variety of us knew each other because the ballet world is small. So a couple of us had seen each other at summer programs, or they went to ABT school and I went to SAB, and there was a couple more of us. And so we all kind of looked around like, is this going to happen? Are we going to start the next big West Coast company, or are we all going to be looking for jobs really soon? And it was a very much a family feeling joining a company that had not been established. Now, there had been other Los Angeles ballets before, but to be part of the first one under this directorship, it was kind of extra special. I mean, it was either we do this thing or it flops.
Mm-hmm.
So there was very much a small group. We band together, we make this thing happen. I'm sure we took more pay cuts than any of us deserve to have had. Um, we danced in situations that were clearly not safe, circumstances with not enough heat or not enough AC or all those kinds of things because we were just so desperate to make it work. We wanted to dance so badly. But in that, there was a feeling of we will make this happen. And when we do, we're going to be so proud of ourselves. And it was really special. I mean, we ended up getting a full building and the whole company came together really, really quickly. I quickly was cast so I came in with an apprenticeship. Within that first season, I got my core spot. And we were all considered, we didn't have like very strict rankings over there. We kind of mished a little bit around. So we would have a core dancer who would do a principal role one season and then go back down and just do core work, mostly because we were mixing different genres. We had Colleen Neary, who was bringing in the Balanchine. And then we had Thordal Christensen, who was bringing in all of his Bournonville. And so some people would get picked for different things. And it was kind of fun that way. You just really didn't know. It wasn't sort of like always those people are doing it. Kind of, it could be anybody. But I had enormous opportunities to dance incredible Balanchine ballets right from the get-go, which was my sweet spot. And my love for Balanchine was just, thriving at that point. But it was really fun to dance some of the Bournonville stuff with Thordal because my training is Vaganova training, very classical, very Russian-based training. And so to pull back and be cast for Napoli, Bournonville, I was like, oh my gosh, these are my old roots coming back. Like I can do these small hands and this beautiful gesturing. And that was really fun to kind of flip back and forth. I would say quickly on in the company, I was cast as a smart dancer. And I say this because as a teacher now, I talk about this with my dancers all the time. I got cast in stuff that was challenging to count or that was difficult to pick up because they were like, there's somebody who is always here, picking it up quickly, can count well, just had that kind of way about them. And it was wonderful. For the longest time, I kept thinking that as an honor. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm going to be an understudy for this. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to be in all the rehearsals because they need me here. This is my specialty. As the years went on, I kind of realized that I was being more or less used for that role. And I then had some moments where I was like, I am more than just a brain on legs. I want to be given these other roles. I want to be exploring other things. I don't have to be doing this stuff because no one else can. That would be fed to me often. And so there was times that I struggled with that a lot when it came to casting. I am also 5'9", and I would sometimes get cast in the male roles because we didn't have enough men. And so Nutcracker season came along, and in our Nutcracker, we did not have mice, we had rats, and we wore full fursuits with a baseball, no, excuse me, bike helmet on top, and then a rat's head on top of that, and then this like thing that went down in front of us. So you did the whole dance looking down. And all the gentlemen did it. And then they'd be like, Alexandra, we need you to fill in for this. And it was like a really physical dance, lots of like jumping and turning, and we did cartwheels on each other and all this stuff. And of course, I was like, yep, that sounds like a great idea. And then a couple of seasons in, I was like, this is not normal. Like, I don't have to be doing this. None of the other girls are doing this. And I would wear my snow costume underneath that. And I would be the first rat to die on stage and run off. And I had a team behind me who would strip off the rat costume, plug in my snow costume, pull on my tutu, all this kind of stuff. And then I was the first snowflake out because I could count that beginning section. And so it took a toll on me after some years of being like, I think that I'm not being respected in the way that I would like to be respected. I'm not being honored in that way. And I could tell some dancers who maybe didn't have that skill that I had didn't have to do those things. And that became a real struggle after some time.
Yeah, especially when you are doing something so intensely physical, right? I'm sure that it was a lot of work on your neck and your body and everything to hold that helmet up. And then, of course, snow in and of itself is already exhausting. So you've got this exhausting role on top of another.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so that sounds like you did that you did that for a few seasons. You did both of those roles with like the full, multiple shows per Christmas type of a schedule. Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, I was used for everything. And at that time, I would like looking back, I would not give it up for the world. I mean, I love now being able to share that story with my dancers who get frustrated with their casting or something. And I'm like, listen, let me tell you, let me share my experience with you. And oftentimes they have something to connect with or whatever it may be. And so I am ever so grateful for all of those moments. I was young at that point, and I did not have the mental health awareness to say, like, I really maybe would like to vouch for myself here. I would like to say, excuse me, may I please? Or may I have a meeting with you? Like those words did not come into my vernacular until much, much later in life. And it was a enormous transition for me as a dancer to go from yes, 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 because I'm so desperate to get on stage and all I want to do is perform. And so I will put up with anything over here so I can do this thing that I love. Because as the ballet world does, it threatens to pull that out from you at all times. If you don't, it's gone. And so it took years to regain some of that confidence and knowing that I can say, this is not okay. I don't appreciate this. I would like things worked out in a different structure or however that is. And it took time to learn that. And I'd like to be able to be an advocate for that now with younger dancers of saying, like, use your words. Tell me, how are you physically feeling? Don't hide an injury from me, because I was notorious for doing that. Explain to me how you're feeling. Does this role make you feel terrible? Do you not enjoy it? Are you not finding a connection to it? Let's see if we can work on that together. Whatever it may be, I am now grateful that I had those years so I could build that. But they were not always kind years.
Yeah. And like you said, the ballet world is like almost it's like a dime a dozen, right? That's how the kind of the mindset is coming from the top, where it's like, if you don't want to do it, someone else will. And so I think it not only takes time to know you can use your words, but to trust that when you use your words, you'll be okay.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the biggest thing. So what happened then? How long did you stay there? What happened next after all of that?
Yeah, so I was with Los Angeles Ballet for a number of years, and then I got the call one day. I was teaching always on the side. I taught within the School of Los Angeles Ballet. I was director of the children's program for a little while there. I taught at other local studios, mostly because I just loved being around children. And so I was like, this is a great way to make money. I'm going to teach these kids. And one day we were on a break. We often took some time off in the summer, and I got a call from one of our directors, and they said, "This movie thing is looking for somebody to teach somebody. Since you're here, we put your name in." And I said, "Oh, okay, that seems fine. Let me know what it is, and get back to me." And then Benjamin Millepied had called me, and he was like, "So we're doing Black Swan." I was like, "I okay." I was not connected to the movie world at all. That was not something. We were in Los Angeles, but I would not say that that is something that I either A, have a passion for, or B, was really involved in over there. It was just sort of like in our neighborhood. And they said, we have this actress and we need her trained really fast to be in a ballet role. And I was like, seems like fun. Let's do this thing. And they said, okay, your name's Mila Kunis, and she's never had any ballet. I said, okay, great. Let me Google. And so I kind of pulled up information. I was like, all right, what am I working with here? What are we going to do? And we started meeting. And at first, it was sort of like, let her shadow you a little bit and see what a real ballet dancer is like. I brought her to class. I took class in front of her some, and then we started training more and more. And then it was like, okay, your full-time job now is going to be to get this person who's never done ballet ready to be performance and on screen within a couple months. And I was like, oh wow, that's now we're really doing this thing. Like,
How much time did you have with her per day? That's a lot. I mean, that's intense.
so luckily we had a lot of time. And I created programs. I'm going to be like, okay, you're going to do this cardio while I go take class because I still had to do that. And then we're going to jump into the studio. We're going to do all these things. And I take her up to the PT room, and I was like, okay, now we're going to do all of our physical therapy together. And then, we would do times where it was like, it was sunny. All right, we're going to do all of our porta bras in the pool for an hour. So
Oh
we
gosh.
just put it in everywhere we possibly could, but that became a full-time investment for me. And as that was going on, I was like, I really enjoy this. I was like, I am really enjoying teaching somebody a craft that I love. Because from the time that I was young all the way up until my professional career, I was always around other people who loved my craft like I did. And they were as good as me or better, always. And so it was a real delight all of a sudden to teach somebody and say, like, look at this cool thing that I love so much. Let me show you how to do it. And the first couple of times I was like, okay, you really need to make sure your foot is not sickled in that tendu and stretch out, blah, blah, blah. And she'd be like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, that's right. Okay, the foot that's on the floor, you're going to use the right toe and put it into the marley. And I was like, because there was no concept of brushing the floor through a tendu and finding that space. I had to interpret everything that I knew from ballet. It was like being a language interpreter. And I took what I knew and refiled it and then spit it back out in a way that was much more attainable. And it was like puzzles. And I really, really enjoyed that. And that was the first time that I kind of was like, I think that what I might be best at in this ballet world is teaching. And before that, I was always teach to make money, teach to be around young kids. Like that was kind of it. But this was the first time that I was really had the chance to say, I really enjoy interpreting what I know and giving it to somebody else and watching them grow with it. And even watching her moments of success that were putting point shoes on for the first time and getting up, and she was like, holy smokes. And I could be like, that's incredible. Like, look where you've come from in these couple of months. Or, I was given all of the choreography, and then I would take all the choreography and teach it to her in a way that was much more attainable. So I could not say like, chaîné, 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 chasse, pique, Arab, balancing, none of that kind of stuff worked. So it had to be very 2 feet together. You're going to make that big round circle we talked about. And I'm going to kind of help you get going in those chaînés. And then we're going to capture that moment. And, it was learning all that choreography that took so much more time. And finding that grace in the upper body. And, she was really great about being able to go to classes and be like, I can see just even how you guys all stand. You wait for the combination, but you're like this the entire time. She was like, there is no like waiting for your combination. You guys are at attention at all times. So it was really fun to hear her perspective too. Like she was learning this world of ballet, and I was learning to teach it to her in a very kind of vulnerable state. And it was wonderful. It was really great. And then from there on, we ended up traveling to New York to film. And that was my first time on any type of set or learning any of how any of those things went, which was a blast. We had a couple of scenes where, she was supposed to be taking class. We hadn't really thought like we had lots of background dancers from all companies that I had known, and all my friends were standing around there, and they were like, okay, can you just feed her the combinations from the side? I was like, yeah, sure. Let's figure out, like, four tendus on qual, whatever. And I'd be like, right foot out and in and out and in and out, whatever it was to make it. And then as it would go on, they're like, okay, that's getting less complicated. Go throw a leotard and tights on and jump in the bar in front of her. Just blend it with the dancers. Okay, fine. So then, we went to that. So there was a lot of amazing firsts. And it was one of the first times, again, where I was starting to find my voice, and I was starting to get the recognition of, what do you think? And I remember the first couple of times I was like, Darren Aronofsky was like, come sit back here and tell me what you think. And I was like, you want my opinion on that? Absolutely. And I was just faking it till I could make it. I was like, okay, let's do this. But just hearing that, it was then kind of that seed that started growing in my mind that was like, maybe what I'm experiencing over here is not exactly how I want to be treated. It's not exactly the environment that I want to continue to grow in. It's not exactly where I see myself flourishing as a human for years to come. So after we wrapped up Black Swan and I went back to Los Angeles Ballet, they weren't thrilled that I had left to go do this. For companies, they like to keep you in your little box and stay there. And so I went back, and I can be kind of feisty sometimes. And I was like, well, that's it. I'm leaving. And I was like, I'm going to do one last season because there was a couple ballets I wanted to do. And I was like, and that's it. I am going to walk from this because I have found, whether any of those opportunities ever come again, I have just found my voice in something that is not being heard over here.
How empowering. I mean, it's so different to go from being asked to be quiet the whole time, which basically you are literally and figuratively in ballet, where you don't actually open your mouth ever, to being asked to think. I mean, like you said at the beginning of this part is, that you were a smart dancer. And so in that case, it's so nice to be able to actually get to use that part of your intelligence, not just to run your body into the ground, but to get to share it with other people.
Mm-hmm. That was 100% what I was feeling, was just the other parts of me that had been on pause or had been pushed down, all of a sudden were given a chance to grow. And I could really feel myself being like, there is more to this than what I'm experiencing right now. Education had always been a really big, important part of my life. And I had already started the LEAP program through St. Mary's College in Morado, California. And I was starting to also get feedback at school that was like, oh, this is something you're really good at. And it was just another place to hear, you could be doing something over here or something over here. Whereas ballet had been like, you will get into this company and you will do it the way we say, or it's not going to happen. And it was a really empowering experience to have a few of those elements in my life all come together at the same time. And that was how I, pulled up my bootstraps and walked into the office and said, this will be my last season. Thank you. And it was not easy. And there was lots of tears on stage when I took my final bow and everything. But I kind of got to the place where I was like, if I don't do this, I fear that something else is not going to open or I'm not going to experience whatever else I'm supposed to experience at this time.
Mm-hmm. You could feel you were ready for growth.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. Where I imagine doing the same or similar ballets for that many years, perhaps you had reached kind of where you felt like you had, and you had grown to where you could in that particular environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you worry that you would regret leaving it? Was that what part of the fear of it, that you might regret having walked away from it?
Yeah, I definitely did. I had moments of thinking, what if that's the only company I'll ever get into? Because I wasn't really ready to hang up my shoes completely. I needed a little bit of a break, and I knew I wanted to dance in a way that gave me a bit more space, maybe in a way that I could pursue my education at the same time. I wasn't really sure. So I kind of quit or left or retired in a moment of this isn't it, but I don't know what's next. And so I kind of just needed to be brave and give space to what I could do. But I was very fearful that maybe that is the only company in the whole wide world that will ever see me as a proper ballet dancer. And that was it. And I've closed down that shop forever. Like so many people, that's not the case. Other companies and other opportunities evolved. And I moved back to New York because I really did miss the city and I miss living there. And I joined New Chamber Ballet. And that was an incredible experience because I was coming in now to a company as a mature dancer, whereas before I was a young student. So I came in under an apprenticeship. I came in wide eyed and ready to go and do all of that. And the second time I came into a company, I was like, thank you so much for this opportunity. Let's set some boundaries. And that was enormous. I remember just speaking up for my first time a couple of times, being like, this rehearsal is not going, in a place that I need to go. Something's not feeling well. And just to be met with like, great, let's just pause and you go to physical therapy or whatever it is, and we'll reconvene. And it was really wonderful to feel that. New Chamber Ballet does all of their ballet performances in a chamber setting. So in some of the beautiful chamber halls in New York with live music, the violinist and the pianist right there. And I think it was one of the first times that I always loved performing on stage. I loved being in the theater. I love the smell of the theater. I love the red curtains. I love everything about that place. I mean, to this day, my students get there and I'm like, just take it all in. I just love it. And that was one of the first times that I was like really experiencing dance in a very raw setting. The audience sits right in front of you. The music is played right on stage with you, and you are taking exactly what's coming live out of them and interpreting it into your body for a full experience for the audience. And I couldn't have done it when I was younger. I needed the years of maturity to show me that I could dance like that and that I was brave enough to do some of those solos and to do some of that work. And to step into some contemporary. We'd always dabbled in some contemporary at Los Angeles Ballet. We had contemporary seasons, but this was the first time that it was doing it not in a large group, in much smaller settings. And again, in that chamber setting where, you invited somebody and you could see their eyeballs and you were like, okay, they're right there. But it was an incredible time of growth for me as an artist.
Yeah, how fun. I mean, just even just using the word artist there, right? As opposed to the whole time you were talking about Los Angeles Ballet, you never used the word artist to describe yourself during that whole period of time. So very, very different description of your experience there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a time that I was doing it for myself completely. It was just for me because I knew that at any time I could say, okay, this is not suiting me anymore. And I wasn't fearful of that. So I was doing all of the experiencing everything in those settings purely for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really, really joyful.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And how long were you with them?
I worked with them probably 3 seasons, I think, a shorter amount of time. I went and then worked on Oz the Great and Powerful, the movie, and did some work on like choreographic physical work. So we sat down, the director and I, and he had a great moment of telling me, like, I want you to choreograph movement that kids are going to do on the playground when they play these characters. And so I was given kind of another opportunity to be like, oh, I'm going to play in this area now. Like, I'm going to take what I know about this and interpret it into some physical movements for these actors and actresses. And so I did that as well, like during my time at New Chamber Ballet, and then came back a little bit. And as that was starting to, the time with New Chamber Ballet and getting some of these opportunities, it was really starting to come into my life that I was ready to really hang up my shoes. Um, I had not necessarily let the ballet world wounds and all those things heal. I was just kind of still plowing through. And so when I decided to take some space and truly retire from the stage, and I left New Chamber Ballet and I went on and finished my degree. I then moved back to California because, as my family likes to say, I just love to go coast to coast. Um, but my now husband and I had been in a long-term relationship. And so I knew that the next phase of my life was starting, which was going to be, being able to get married and teach in a more regular capacity. I did go back to Los Angeles Ballet and teach as the director for the children's program there again. And then life kind of just kept going. And I had our oldest daughter, and then I had our middle daughter. And during that time, I taught some, and then I had some difficult pregnancies. And so I really took a step back and I dove into motherhood full on. And I really put a full stop sign in front of ballet and was like, that was the old me. I used to do this, and now I'm a mom. And watch me knock your socks off with how well I'm going to do this. And so I, dove into that head first, and I really closed the door on ballet. And, it wasn't until I would be having dinner with people that they'd be like, how did you get to Los Angeles in the first place? And I was like, oh, I used to dance with Los Angeles Ballet. And we're like, what? And so it was just not a part of myself that I was talking about. I wasn't experiencing anymore. I was not taking class at all. I didn't want to be in the classroom. I wasn't teaching. I just really, really took space away from it and just dove into motherhood. And then I had my son. Um, and as life does, it throws you curveballs, and we ended up moving to Charlotte. Um, and my love for teaching kind of started sparking again. We have 3 children. My joke is that my middle one has disrespected me and decided to go into dance and not do other things that would keep me away from it. um,
You got the
but
gene. Oh no.
One did.
Ah,
But her finding some love in it really brought me back into the studio.
yeah.
Um, and then in a place now where I am with teaching is just a completely different mindset, a completely different experience than I ever had before. But I have said to many people, I needed that time. I needed to heal some of those old ballet wounds. I needed to find who I was completely separate from ballet, not even as a teacher, not in the classroom, any of that. And then the second part of sort of my journey with it was getting back into the classroom and back into teaching. And that has been definitely some growth and being braver than I probably ever had to be, even in those younger years of saying yes to things and being all over the place.
And so now you're teaching in Charlotte, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I am. So yeah, now I'm teaching in Charlotte here, and I I absolutely love it. I teach all ages of young children and all the teens and all that kind of stuff. And I'm the director of the ballet company here. And I teach some adults. And that has been a passion of mine that just bloomed in a way that I could not have done when I was younger. I had nothing to bring to the table to adults until I had adulted myself. And I needed that time to be a mom, to experience things on the other side, to let my body change. I had only been a ballet dancer forever and ever. And now I had been a mom of three kids, and my body had done all of the things that mom bodies do. And to step back into the classroom and say, like, okay, this is what I have to bring to the table is just this. I could relate to those adults in there. And I was like, yeah, oatmeal flipped over in my car on the way here. And my son is definitely sick and I'm going to have to pick him up from school soon or whatever it is. But we're here in this moment together and we're going to get what we can out of this. And that I am eternally grateful for my break to be able to come back and find that.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about your adult students, I mean, they're such an interesting group to teach, right? Because they have so much different reasons as to why they're coming than maybe a kid or maybe someone in a pre-professional setting. As you've gotten to know them, were there any reasons that were like surprising to you? Because obviously your reason for starting ballet in the beginning would have been very different from, reasons that adults would have. So I'm curious if there's anything like,
Yeah.
whoa, that's amazing.
That has been very eye-opening. I mean, I have never met more brave people than come into ballet later in life. I mean, it is just the bravery that it takes to say, like, I am going to try this art form that pretty much has said no to either me or people I know most of my life, because it does. And to be like, well, I'm gonna do it anyways, and I'm gonna try it. And watching those students, their love for it has definitely shown me and reignited love for myself and things. Like even Samantha, one of the incredible students that you work with, and who I got to teach her Black Swan variation to her. Um, it was so inspiring to re-find what is beautiful about Black Swan and find that character again and show it to somebody else and watch them experience it and watch somebody experience it from a place of I've only observed this my whole life. I've never been in it like that. And being able to give over like the knowledge and all of that I have, but also just watch them grow in it. That has been incredible. And I have learned so much from teaching adults that I bring into teaching my students, because I think we can get very bogged down as teachers in what we teach. We either teach this or we teach this or however we do it. And I am very grateful that I get to cross back and forth. I teach very strict ballet students. I teach adults who've never taken a day of ballet in their entire life. And I teach very competitive ballet students. And getting to do that, and also competitive dance students who only have to take ballet because it's a requirement. But for me as a teacher to be able to draw on all of those different areas and then bring them together and feed it to them, again, it was circling back to that puzzle. I really loved being able to find something in ballet, reinterpret it, and give it back to somebody this way. And I have found that with teaching adults and getting to feel the love that they have for ballet, I can kind of take in and then give to my students who may be bogged down in their turnout or their feet or point work or whatever, and be like, but just remember the attitude that you need to do Black Swan. And then all of a sudden you see them spark. And then you can be like, okay, yeah, now we're going to go back to the technique and we're going to narrow and all that. But they've been given a little something to hold on to. Mm-hmm. And that has been a tremendous change in my teaching.
Wow, that's amazing. I love, there's almost like overflow, right? The adults are teaching the kids through you, like the feeling is like passing through you down into the students. That's so sweet.
Yeah, I love that part. And the students do too. I mean, the fact that they can, get really heady about something very technical. And I have to then kind of say, okay, let's figure this out. Let me break this down to you in a way that is going to like make sense to your fourth grade mind or whatever it is. But then knowing, okay, I've broken this thing down really well. I'm going to take it to my adults now. And I'm going to say, oh, I just did balances for the first time with this ballet one group. And we really talked about the transition and I would use metaphors and all that. And now I'm going to bring it to an adult. And even them being like, yes, thank you. Like I needed it broken down in that way and not just said, we'll transfer your weight. That they're like, that doesn't necessarily make sense to me. So it is really fun to feel open to all of the different sides that I teach, kind of like you're saying, flowing in and out of me like that as a teacher.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I love the adults, I think, always have the most interesting questions, like this very interesting questions like, well, how does that work? And you're like, yeah, that's a good, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Fun question.
Absolutely. I think I've been hit with those so many times as a teacher, even from adults or from teaching people who've never had dance in their life, who needed to be good at it in 4 months or whatever it may be. And I do enjoy those. They spark a little bit of panic at the beginning because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know the answer. And then if you take a beat and you're like, okay, but I do. It's just somewhere in me. I've just got to kind of think through this a second. I love having those moments with my students.
They're so fun. They always remind me of when I had a young girl who was learning English as a second language and asked me a question. She was like, "How do you know when to use neither or either?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
You just know, right? And so it's like so interesting to try to like break this stuff down that like becomes sort of ingrained in your own body. And then you have to say, no, wait a sec. It's ingrained now, but it wasn't in the past, right? It was not ingrained now. And telling something like where your tongue would go on your teeth to make a certain sound or like little details that you may not even know about. So it's so fun to get to
Absolutely.
stuff
I
out.
say that now. I say that now about fourth grade math. I'm like, it is beyond humbling to go through grade school again and do fourth grade math. I'm like, oh boy, this is tough.
It's been a while since had to do that.
Oh.
One thing I loved that you said earlier in the conversation, which just, I mean, your life has woven through so many different places and you've had so many different opportunities, but it's scary to take each of those, right? Like it's, as you look back, like probably the opportunities just sound like, oh, and then I did this, and then I did this, and I did this. But then in the actual moment of it, it's just like there's some nail biting moments, and it's like, is this the right thing? And is that the right thing? And I think one of the things that you said that is so hard is so hard. You said, this isn't it, but I don't know what is.
Mhm.
And that moment, I'm sure you've had so many of those. That moment is so hard when you're looking at it. And I think that moment is often what actually drives people to ballet, or what will bring people to ballet, is they're looking at their life and they're like, this isn't it, but I don't know what is. And for some people, I find that ballet is actually what gets plugged in there and what they then will see like, oh, this is it. Like this, I don't know what this is or where it's been my whole life, but like, this is it.
Exactly. And I think everybody's that moment after they've taken that pause and they have had that little bit of time to like settle in the uncomfortableness of, I don't know what is next. But once they find it, and in ballet, giving them that opportunity to find it, for some, it is, I want to be technical again. I want to be a student. I want somebody to drill in the technician. Some of them are like, oh my gosh, it turns out I was an artist all along, but I'm in IT. And so they need to stretch their wings and be a character. And I find that to be with my younger students, with my adult students, whoever it is, that given that space, they all take something from it in a way that I may not take from it. My journey with ballet and love with it has gone in and out from being a technician to an artist to all kinds of different roles in it. But watching somebody else and meeting them where they are with it and knowing that this has come down into your life for you to take what you want from it. And I love that about adult ballet, where it is not, you don't have to be there. You don't have to show up. You are an adult. You can make all your own decisions, but you decide to. And that is where I find the bravery in those dancers is so inspiring to me. Um, I have very flippantly said before, like, oh, I would never be caught dead on stage now in this 3 times over mom body. And, I can't do any of the things I used to be able to do and blah, blah, blah. And I think, wait, but look at the joy that these dancers are having. Look what they are experiencing. And if I could get out of my way and go through that door and experience that, that is incredible. And I have been very good at that in moments in my life and times where it's been more difficult. But I always do go back to those moments and think, this isn't it right now. And I don't know what is. And having that little pause breath there to say, like, it will come together and it's okay to sit in this ick right now. You have to sit in that ick as a parent all the time. And it has given me a lot more grace to be like, it's okay, we're going to sit right here in this discomfort for a little while. But it comes out in all kinds of places.
I don't even know how we can wrap this episode up because we went to so many different places. We went to so many different places, but I would love to hear if you have any parting thoughts or advice for people who are, either in our audience, adults who are starting ballet for the first time, or who are maybe more like you, returning after a break, returning from a broken heart in ballet, and trying to come back and find their love for it. I'm curious if you have any, parting thoughts for either or both of those two types of people.
Yeah. I think for dancers who may have been like myself, who needed to take some time away from ballet and who either had some painful moments in it or had some healing to do from it, I think as I started getting back into it and even started taking class for myself and standing in first position and looking down and be like, well, that is not the first position that used to be there. And that is okay. We're just going to have to take some deep breaths and let that go. Um, Dance for yourself. I mean, at that point, who are you doing this for? It is just you. And that is such a difficult lesson to teach young dancers. They have to experience it for themselves. I can't bang it into them any more than they can listen to it. And so they all have to do their own journey with it. But as an adult, you come to it in that place is truly just do it for you. Like just listen to the music, find what music hits in your soul, find what movement feels good to you, find what technique really sparks something for you. I think is fantastic. And I think also sharing that. We sometimes get back into ballet in a little bit of a secretive space and say, like, well, I'm not available for coffee on Wednesdays. But that's because you're going to ballet class and you don't want to share with anybody because God forbid somebody sees you in ballet class or asks how it is or are you any good? Can you do the splits? We get all those kinds of things that no one needs to hear or know about. Be brave to share what you're doing because at the end of the day, what those people are asking and wanting is to be a part of something they're too scared to do. And I think the more that we can say, I am doing this, it does not look perfect, it's not beautiful, but I'm so enjoying it. Everybody else around them is like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. Guess what I did secretly? I went skateboarded last night. Like whatever it is, their thing, they kind of start sharing that. And if I think we had more of that in this environment, it would be so beneficial. And for all the dancers who are coming at it for the first time, I mean, kudos to you, hats off. I just find it incredibly inspiring. And share with your teacher. I think that the more my students share with me and come up and say, like, I've never danced before, but my daughter does, or my son does, or whatever it may be, and I just kind of want to see what it feels like. I'm like, get in here. Let's do it. I want to like change the music that I'm using that day, change the vernacular of how I'm talking, whatever it may be. And be willing to share that with your teacher because they want to be on that journey with you. Good teachers want to be inspired by you and lift you up. We have a Bring a Friend to Week at the studio. And this past year, we had a couple of our senior moms surprise their seniors and pop into class. And the energy in the class it was just unreal. I mean, just watching these women dance freely with their children was so inspiring. And I just take those moments and go share them, sprinkle them out to everybody.
I love that. I love all of that. That's so beautiful. And it's so true. People tend to be really shy about the fact that they're doing it. But like you said, people are really just curious and they are thinking, how could I, how can you be so brave to do that? So it's really amazing to get to share that. Well, thanks so much, Alexandra, for taking the time to be on the podcast. I so loved the conversation. I feel like we could keep going for 5 hours to talk about it, to dive into, but it was really such a treat to get to know you. And yeah, I'm inspired by your kind of rekindling love of ballet too. I mean, that's such a, that's so hard and not everybody who leaves ballet gets there to rekindle that love and to go back into it. So it's always really beautiful when you get to hear that story and how great that the adults got to bring you back into it. That's so great.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been such a joy. And what you are doing over at Roach Ballet is so inspiring. I mean, just hearing even from Samantha and students who are part of it and listening to their spark and experience through that, I'm like, we need more people like you doing this type of thing and reminding the adults and the next generation why you do it. Because every young student who watches an older adult take class is inspired. They remember why they do this. And it is so important to make it very circular process with everybody.
Yeah, that's so true. Then they see, oh, it doesn't end at high school. Oh, it doesn't end. It continues on. They see, oh, you can do it when you have kids. You can do it when you're retired. You can do it at all the time. So that goes a long way for people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, dancers, I hope you had so much fun getting to listen to my conversation with Alexandra. We could talk to her all day, couldn't we? All right, I hope you have a great week. I'll be back next week with another amazing episode. And until then, I wish you very happy dancing.